Earlier in the hour, we brought you the story of a controversial judge in Missouri. He let an accused killer out on the streets with just a $5,000 bond. A lot of citizens feel he's endangered their lives and betrayed their trust. Well, Brian Karam reports on a judge in New England accused of betraying citizens' trust by stealing millions of dollars. Police say he used his robes of justice as a cover for his criminal enterprise.
Newport, New Hampshire, a quiet little slice of Americana nestled in the rolling hills of New England. A small town built on trust, at least until 1988, when John Tweedy found out there was someone not so trustworthy in trusting Newport. His attorney, John Fairbanks, who Tweedy suspected was stealing from him. But Tweedy had another problem. Fairbanks was also a sitting judge at the time, a longtime pillar of the community who had ties to the powerful New Hampshire Republican Party.
He was a director of the bank, you know, he was the chairman of the county Republican Party. He came from a well-known, long-time, fine family.
He had entrusted Fairbanks with taking care of his brother's estate, until one day in 1988 when Fairbanks told Tweedy there was no money left in his brother's bank account.
He had informed me that my brother's estate was in financial difficulty, and that was news to me, a shock. I mean, I hadn't dreamed that could happen.
Tweedy thought the judge stole at least $30,000 from his brother's account. He went to the New Hampshire Attorney General's office and filed a complaint looking for help, but the case went nowhere.
They dismissed it. They dismissed my complaint as being almost irrelevant.
Well, if he was stealing from Tweedy, he really wasn't a very good thief in my book, because there wasn't that much money there to begin with.
He said, well, if the judge stole anything, he didn't steal much. And that he said at the first meeting, and that got my hackles up.
To continue his brother's health care, Tweedy had to sell land that had been in the family for 2 centuries. Meanwhile, he became increasingly angry. Tweedy was convinced the system was covering for Fairbanks. So he went to the press. When this article appeared in the local paper in 1989, it shocked the people of Newport. It shocked them into action. Dozens of Fairbanks victims came forward. Among those were Jean Kennerson, who lost her life savings of $200,000 and almost lost her home.
If he could have put that energy into doing something that was right, and made a name for himself all over the world instead of doing this, that'd been something.
The numbers continued to grow to the point that state investigators could no longer ignore the problem. By early summer of 1989, New Hampshire officials were convinced Fairbanks had stolen $3.8 million. And feeling the heat, Fairbanks, one of the most prominent members of the community, quit the bench, skipped town, and set up residence in his $400,000 summer home in Ogunquit, Maine.
Personally, I think it's a brilliant example of what could best be called small-town suckerdom, because that's what happened. John took advantage of a family name and a family background.
While this was going on, the judge and his family were relaxing in Maine, hiding in plain sight.
I had seen him on many occasions and was well aware of who he was. I don't think I paid any particular attention to him until after we found out that he was wanted for the theft of the monies from the people in New Hampshire.
By the time word got to the police in Maine, it was December 28, 1989, and Fairbanks was gone again.
On that particular day, the state police and myself arrived to try to effect an arrest on him, and he had already fled by the time we had arrived here.
Jesus, he was a hell of an guy.
Roberto Camerata remembers the judge well. He and his family were regulars at Roberto and his wife Kathy's Italian restaurant in Ogunquit.
Were you surprised when you heard about it?
I was totally surprised. I was totally taken back. I was shocked, and to this day, I still can't believe it.
John Fairbanks, over the course of something like 15 years, focused his larcenous attentions, if you will, upon the poorest, the weakest, the most vulnerable citizens of his community.
After the judge slipped away, other allegations came to light. First, the Newport Police and then the Ogunquit, Maine Police Department began investigating allegations that the judge liked to have sex with young boys and would sometimes go out at night dressed as a woman. Back in New Hampshire, the case continued, and investigators soon estimated Fairbanks had looted estates and accounts for as much as $10 million. And there was a new question. How did the judge get away with it? Did the judge's political friends protect him from the law? Representative Peter Burling says it is the worst miscarriage of justice in the state's history.
John Fairbanks was allowed a standard of liberty, shall we say, that suggests he was operating under a completely independent criminal justice standard. The standard of justice for the rich and powerful that worked one way in the case of John Fairbanks and worked quite a different way for everybody else.
There is one inescapable fact, and that is that life in Newport, New Hampshire has changed forever. Call it a loss of innocence, if you will, but business is no longer conducted here by a simple handshake. There is a new cynicism towards government. People no longer automatically trust judges or lawyers. You may say, because of the Fairbanks affair, that tiny, picturesque Newport, New Hampshire is now no different than any large city in the United States.
It has corroded the conviction that people have that their judicial system and their criminal justice system will look after them. For my county, it has left almost an entire county without faith in the governmental institutions that serve it. These are not small costs.
The one particular supreme thing that I've learned from this situation is that in this, the most materialistic society on earth, right? Just like everything else, justice is a commodity. And if you can't afford it, you don't get it.
Fairbanks became a fugitive as quietly and smoothly as he stole. Fairbanks' wife says the day he disappeared, he went to downtown Ogunquit, Maine for his regular morning cup of coffee. That was December 28, 1989, and Fairbanks hasn't been seen since. Wherever he is, there's a good chance Fairbanks is a freewheeling fugitive. Police say he may have had more than $1 million in cash with him. If you think you know where John Clow Fairbanks is tonight, call our hotline at 1-800-CRIME-93. We'll be back in a moment. Stay with us.
Next on America's Most Wanted.
We thought he was out doing his job, only he was out doing a job on us.